Guess I'll just close my eyes.
All right, so welcome to 420 TV, and I'm here with guest Lisa Haven, or not a guest, I'm here at Disclosure Con with her, but I thought I would talk to her about all of the neat stuff she talks about on her channel, which is a great channel, from conspiracies to politics to all of the scandals going on today. So where do you want to start, and what do you think is the most important thing going on right now?
Well, aside from what's going on with Judge Kavanaugh, we know that's kind of like the topic of discussion.
What a circus.
It is a circus. It literally is. And they're voting right now, so I'm not sure where that's at the moment. But aside from that, I think that one of the most important issues for us, and you as a YouTuber, myself as a YouTuber, is a lot of the censorship that is happening.
Yes.
And I say that because it's absolutely critical, because we're really on that battle side of where we're actually fighting in an information war to stay on air. Like you and I were talking earlier about how you, every time your channel gets to a certain size, you get shut down.
That's right.
And I was explaining to him earlier too, when I have a Facebook page with about 28,000 people that follow it. One day, about a couple of years ago in 2016, when all the stuff started, that number stopped. And it hasn't really moved more than a couple hundred in 2 years.
So you think that's mostly them manipulating the numbers?
It's manipulated. It doesn't stop one day like that and just freeze. And obviously we both get put in Facebook jail and,
and
all
Twitter, all of the social medias don't like me. And I was wondering, do you think it's, because I don't want to straight up say a blanket thing, but it seems like only the leftist media outlets or social platforms are the ones that are engaged in shutting down free speech, which is totally bizarre for being in the United States.
No, they're allowed to thrive. Channels like the Young Turks, a very leftist organization, and Media Matters, David Barak, he's a big pusher. There's a document out there called Democracy Matters. You probably touched on it on your channel. But everything he details in that report is happening. He literally admits to paying millions of dollars, having this big fund of money he uses from his big donors to fund literal trolls and bots and people to troll the internet, leave bad comments, not just comments, but now they're really focusing on trying to sway your narrative and sway the people who are following your channel.
Yeah,
and turn in your
they also
profiles.
try to act like you're offensive by telling the truth.
Yes, yes.
And another question I had for you is, with the monetization and stuff, do you think that their main goal is to just shut off money to anybody that's maybe what they consider right? Because I wouldn't consider myself right or left. I don't even believe in the paradigm.
Right.
But my values are more consistent with the people that are pretending on the right, at least.
I think that obviously they want to hit us where it hurts. They want the pocket. They want to hit our pocketbooks.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're attempting to do, is if they can take away all our finances, take away all our funds, then we literally have to go out and try to provide and source it other ways.
Yeah.
So they think if they can knock it out of our pocketbook, they can eliminate us totally. The other side of that is eventually, it might have to go to funded by the average person, which are ways we can combat it in the future, but it's that step-by-step process. But they always start with the pocketbook. That is their number one play, and then in conjunction with that, they have the censorship going on as well. And there's multiple documents that put out. One that I haven't aired on my channel yet, so you'll be the exclusive on this because it's coming next week. But there's a document, and it has, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it. But if your viewers will Google 377 words the U.S. government blocks. Oh, desktop binder. That's what it is. Desktop binder.
Desktop binder. Okay.
Have you heard of that?
No, I have not.
Okay, so it's interesting. Desktop binder, 377 words, and all these words are listed. If any one of these words are tweeted, sent in an email, or any kind of correspondence on the internet, this sends off alarms from the U.S. government, and the U.S. government will flag those words, and it includes words like cloud, rain.
Wow.
Yes.
I was thinking like Islam, Constitution.
That's on there too.
Like that.
No, it was like weather stuff. and I'm trying to think of some of the other words. El Paso was on there, Yuma for whatever reason, and just weird kind of off the kilter things, but also stuff that would like flu, epidemic, those words were on there also.
So basically they're just all keywords that would link to anything that people are saying that doesn't agree with the media. Like right away when you said cloud, I'm thinking chemtrails. Your El Paso would be border related.
Border, yes.
And Yuma, Arizona is pretty much the same thing. And so now that we have Trump in, do you think he's really doing much? I mean, besides the economy, it's hard to argue with what's going on in the economy,
Right.
but have you not been waiting for him to say anything about, like, if you remember when Obama was in office, he made the CIA kind of a controlled thing over all the mainstream media. So
Yes.
that's in law. And then, yeah, it's like a
Mockingbird.
modern, updated Mockingbird. And then also, whenever they redid the Patriot Act, they added a bunch of stuff in there. And so they've given control over the media totally to the CIA. So they're allowed to propagandize now legally. That's something Obama put in, and I have not heard Trump say one word about these things. And considering that the press is using that to attack him, why hasn't he said anything about that? Or, like he hasn't talked about the Federal Reserve or the police state, because he's obviously a big police state guy, or the war on drugs, or you could go on and on about these topics that people have been, that really matter to them, but none of those have come up in his administration.
A few have. As far as his administration, we have to remember there's, three branches. You have the judicial, you have the executive, you have the legislative branch. And so one branch can't handle all that comes at it.
Yeah.
So he's been a lot under attack by the leftist group, throwing things like Judge Kavanaugh in his way, throwing so many loopholes in his way. What they're attempting to do is force him in other directions where he can't focus on that. And I know this because I've got personal ties, that can actually have that freeway through the president, if you will, but not that direct.
Because he did actually mention a lot of these things before he got in office. Like, I remember specifically him talking about the Federal Reserve's power over our monetary system.
He did.
But then he put in a Goldman Sachs guy to be the...
Yes, I wasn't happy about that. I don't agree with all his policies. There's a few things I'm like, what?
Do you think that he just got in there and found out that the presidency is a lot more limited than he thought it was going to be when he got in there?
I think he knew some of the limitations, but I guess the good things that he's done is he's, got us out of some of the funding at the United Nations. That's a huge step. He even went to the UN and encouraged other countries not to follow that kind of globalist, unelected bureaucracy of what they're trying to push. These are good moves. Also getting us off of the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
That was a big one.
That could have eliminated pretty much all of us, because underneath the radar they had all these copyright laws where you couldn't even have the same title as someone on a news source. You would be eliminated. And that's near impossible.
And is that part of that keyword thing, is also to find things that they want to attack with copyrights and different things like that?
Not on that one. That one's more specifically, these are words the government wants to pay attention to. And I believe it was the Department of Defense or Department of Homeland Security. One of the two.
That makes sense.
Yes, so it's just like those key words. But I think Trump is on the right path so far. I think there's a lot more he could do. I would love to see him start acting more on the censorship side.
He did start saying things, and this is another thing. A lot of people say that YouTube, Twitter, all of these are private companies. So the First Amendment doesn't apply to them because they're allowed to have their own things. But when you look into where some of these things came from, YouTube's owned by Google, and if a lot of people know, Google was a DARPA startup originally.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that eliminate them from claiming private ownership, because they were started with government and public funds? So the free speech should be still a rule there, or non-discrimination.
I think the thing is, everybody says, oh, it's a private company, they have a right. Well, they have a right to censor the president, they have a right to censor congressmen, which is exactly what they're doing, and certain political sides. And the fact is, a monopoly is technically illegal.
Yes.
And they are a monopoly, so they're breaking rule number one.
Big antitrust laws and monopoly.
So based off that, being a monopoly, private company or not, they've already broken the antitrust law.
Yeah. So do you think that maybe possibly that we could get bills in, kind of like when they broke up the Ma Bell and separated it and everything?
I think it's possible. I think
Because that
that's
was
the
the
only
old
solution.
telecommunications empire was, you
Yes.
know, and then they broke that up, and now we got cell phones, so nobody cares. But
Yeah.
it's almost the same thing. They have a monopoly on all of the information that you see, hear, and read now,
Yes.
unless they're going to sites like yours or mine.
True, but I guess, and I hope someday something's got to be done, because we're definitely being pushed to the bottom of the barrel. Your channel, my channel, multiple others, and you know, this is similar things that actors and producers faced on television.
Yeah.
People like Rod Serling and many other actors come out and they're like, we are censored. If you look back in, you know, years ago when they were being harassed, they actually came on record to Congress
Yeah.
and went on and said, why are we being censored? Why are we not allowed? So it's a similar battle. And I encourage people, check out the battle that happened back then and fast forward to today, because we're having the same kind of battle that they had with television back then. So
Yeah.
I see a lot of these kinds of battles happening with us today.
Yeah, because I actually made a music video called "This Video Is Unavailable." So if you've ever went to YouTube and they've taken something down, it just, you know, has that little static graphic and it says this. And I put in there examples of, you know, like back in Kent State when they used to march for free speech. Nowadays, they're burning signs that say free speech. So how did they get so how did the left get so twisted from being the people that were out there as the counterculture to now being more of a fascist? Everybody needs to shut up except for our view of things.
Yeah, I think because of what the media puts out, what the schools are putting out, a lot of, even in Common Core, communist core.
I had to take my kid out of school because they were not
Yeah.
teaching him anything.
Well, they manipulate the agenda. They put all these political things in your typical grammar. Let me
Yes.
have you do a grammar exercise that talks about Muslims, or that talks about radical Islam,
Yes.
or that talks about, you know, a leftist agenda, anti-immigrant, or
gay
pro,
penguins.
yeah, all kinds of stuff in there. So they're getting it in mass. They're
Yeah.
getting it in mass from Disney to TV to movies to magazines, and so the overall consensus then becomes what we have as the liberal left. Unless somebody's physically removed or taught out of that, then they continue on that path. And that's the hard thing. We got where we're at because we said something's not right inside. We had to go and look it up and search, and we all knew. And so when we break out of that bubble, sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's difficult. And not everybody is wanting to do that because some are so comfortable.
Right? And do you think, you know, how you got, I'm not going to say everybody, but the majority of Hollywood are leftists. And I know that they're not unintelligent people. So
Right.
they have to know that they're in entertainment and eventually it'll be turned on them when they say something eventually that people don't like. So do you think that's all about career? Like, you know, all these George Soros funded things like Media Matters and all of this other stuff. And he's openly, like, he just purchased PayPal, I think. So
Yes.
now he's got his hand in the money now. And the aliens landed. But anyway, do you think that they know what they're saying is wrong, but they're just doing it because that's their source, their pipeline of income?
I think they've been so brainwashed and manipulated to a level that it's so inundated in their head that if they don't believe that, then they get attacked from so many people. So it's almost like you're into it, I'm into it, we're all committing this crime, if you will, together. And not only that, but they know if they go against the flow, they'll be attacked by the other side because they've supported it. So a lot of them are scared to take that leap, and they've accepted money, and got their fame that way. So a lot of them won't switch from the narrative because of their fame.
And I don't know about you guys or you personally, but it bothers me, like, if I like an actor and I like their movies, and then I hear them speak in public, and then I realize, oh, this guy's a tool. You know,
Yeah.
like he's a hardcore socialist that's a millionaire off of capitalism, or something like that. And why do you think it's so lunatic? Like recently, they had Chevy Chase talking about Saturday Night Live, because if you've watched that now, it's a political show. It's not even funny. And don't these people know that they're shooting themselves in the foot with the public?
Yeah, actors should not be doing anything political. Like,
Yeah.
I think they need to stay out of it altogether. If they're going to be actors, be actors. Don't get involved politically, and don't be a part of that, because they have nothing that gets them to that level. They're not studying politics. They're not any more educated than the average public on politics.
Yeah.
So why do we give them that platform? And I encourage people out there, don't give them the platform for that.
Yeah, it's so you think they know that it's just more about their cult of Hollywood and their money? Because it seems like you couldn't not know that you're saying things that are backwards to the way our country was founded.
Yeah, a lot of them are involved. Maria Abramovich, I always say her name wrong, but she was very cultist, and she's in a lot of the circles within Hollywood. And I've talked to many producers, David Hebner, what's the other one, Mike? I'm blanking. Chuck Norris, Mike Norris, Mike Norris, and a lot of them, and so they fight a lot of Hollywood. Like
Yeah,
there's
I
certain
noticed that.
things you can't say, certain things you can't do, certain things that they've got programmed their way of doing it, and so they're basically kicked out, and now they do their own outside of your mega Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, you got like the Quaid guy, you know, like he's openly, they've blacklisted him. He can't do anything. So almost anybody that's right-leaning gets blacklisted.
Absolutely.
And another thing is, I was wondering, do you think that, this is just conspiracy theory now, that a lot of these people are really involved in these, I would say, occultist stuff? We could get deeper in that, but a lot of them are tied into that. So
Yes.
do you think that they're being pushed from those groups that, we know those groups are at the top of things, like Bohemian Grove, not Groove. You know, I agree with that group. But anyway, do you think that some of it is pushed from those organizations that we don't see, kind of like the
Absolutely.
hidden hand in things?
Yeah, I think they can be pushed by secret societies because it's almost a necessary. I'm doing this, you're doing this, and I'm going to bring you into my circle because we're doing this again, crime together. And so it's kind of like, and it's also can be used as a tool against them. You step away and you go outside of our little bubble here, we're going to expose these things that you're doing. So it makes it impossible sometimes and hard. And it's easy. There's Angelina Jolie. You can Google Angelina Jolie. I'm sure you've seen that. I've seen that. Many of you have. Talking about her involvement in the Illuminati, talking about her involvement of these sacrificial rituals. So it's very
And those people really bother me because I don't know if you know this, but a while back, Brad Pitt was really into the truther movement. And when he got kind of with her, it's like he purposely took sides.
Yeah.
Like he knows what's going on, but he doesn't care because he's part of the clique. So
he's in now.
and then you got Julie going around doing like Nations Without Borders, and they push all of these ideas like borderless society, and so if we did what Europe's doing right now, I mean you can get into the science, but they're basically lost. They're going to be overpopulated in about 15 years. There'll be less of any native person in their country, like Italy and Germany and all of them. They'll have more Islam people there than they had of the local population, because something about Western society, we don't have children as much anymore.
We have less, yeah.
Because I think it's like we have 1.3 children for every couple, instead of, you have to have
2.5
just to make it even, to replace yourselves, and then you have to have more than that for population growth. So what do you think the future is for Europe if they continue on these leftist ideas? And do you think that's on purpose to get at the United States eventually?
Well, I think that Europeans could end up more of a minority if we continue on these paths that, you're basically shrinking when, like you said, you only have so many kids, and the Muslim population is growing.
Yes.
The Muslim belief, I've read pieces of the information, you got the Hadith, you got the Quran, you got all kinds of rhetoric in there, but their very core of their belief is the way that you take over a country is multiply your children.
That's right, take their women and multiply.
And this is exactly what they're doing. So they encourage mass amounts of children to be born, so you have more of that religion, more of that faith pumped into the society. And it's, all honesty, it's a good concept to take over a country because it works. But at the same end, it's terrifying because if they rule, they've got things like in Surah, there's books in their Quran and Surah that specifically talks about cutting off the heads of the infidels.
Yes.
Now they all don't believe that. Some take it metaphorically.
Well, it's even in the Quran that you're allowed to lie, cheat, as long as they're not Islamic as well. You can't do that to them because they're.
Yes.
So do you think all of this is kind of aimed at the United States? Because in my opinion, the United States is the last man standing, and I think there's a reason for that. This is the only country ever in the history of man that I know of that actually put the words pretty well written that all men are created equal and that power resides in the individual when they're born, not from the government. So obviously people argue all the time, should we make this law or that law? But supposedly our Creator gave us the rights, and the government can't take away something that they didn't give. But we're the last man standing. Guns, free speech, all of that. And it's kind of iffy here. So like we're on the verge of turning over to a nightmare, is what I would say.
We are, and I think we are the last man standing. I think that's a good way to put it. Really spot on, actually, because we are one of the last battalions of freedom with our guns, our Second Amendment, our First Amendment, and they're teaching every day in the schools, guns are bad. In all our movies on Hollywood, in every little aspect that they can fit that in, they'll throw it into like Designated Survivor.
Yeah.
I started watching that and just got sick afterwards because they had such a anti-America agenda and anti-gun agenda, and they hide it and push it in all these movies, and they make rhetorics and little lingos in children's movies.
Yeah, and some people don't even get that. Like every show I've watched recently on Netflix, there's always a guy, he's a white dude, knows the Constitution very well, and they make sure that he does that, and he's always the terrorist, he's always the bad guy, he's always the racist. But it's not just like that. I don't know if you know the numbers, and I'm not anti-gay anyway. I think we live in the United States, you should be able to do what you want as long as it doesn't affect someone else's liberty. So I have no problem with that. Now, being pushed in my face and told me, and like they push it like on Netflix, Hulu, you'll watch a show and 3 out of 5 characters are either transgender, lesbian, or a gay male. And when you're in the population, there's like 1%. Yeah. So it's not an accurate depiction on groups of people at all. So, and then again, they're pushing that towards kids. Like I've been watching some of the cartoons my kid watches, like he watches one where they got 2 moms, and they're trying to legitimize every idea at such an early age that it's technological propaganda to the next level. And with that, in closing, aliens. Since we're at disclosure, what do you think? Are they visiting us, or do you think this is all military stuff?
I do take a little more Christian perspective, obviously, because that is part of that. But I think they're interdimensional. I think they do exist. There's absolutely so much evidence out there. It's undeniable.
You mean like demon?
I think they could be demonic for sure. I used to think fallen angels, but kind of more on the, like a demon, according to the Bible, they have to possess and take over a body. So that could be a body that they use. So the more Christian view on me says they're more demonic in nature, and I think they're interdimensional. I'm sure you differ with me on that one.
I actually think they're nuts and bolts, but interdimensional or spiritual, that could be so close to the same thing. I mean, you know, like, I don't think the kingdom of heaven referred to in all these religions is a, you know, like a planet we can go to. It would have to be in another dimension of something.
Yes, another dimension of heaven, yeah.
And see, I'm not a Christian myself, but I don't disregard the wisdom in the Bible at all, and I agree with the morals. I line up with the morals. But let me ask you this question. So I think one of the most important points in the Bible, and you can differ with me if you want, is that Jesus was a man in the flesh at 33 years old, which is, you know, known in all the occult stuff as the illuminated, enlightened. And what did he do? He went around and enlightened people, and then the empire, Rome or the Jew, they killed him. They killed the enlightened man in the flesh as a message to the world. You can't do that. And if you think about any person that's ever famous for saying let's all get along, be spiritual and all that, they're dead. They kill them. Like, think about it, like Lenin, and you can go on and with people that have that message, they end up dead. I mean, not from natural causes either. It's the people always kill them.
There's a lot of people that are killed nowadays for like all kinds of stuff, but there is a lot. I mean, I think over time Satan can pervert that very easy. What God meant, like images that were created by God have been totally perverted. You have a rainbow and it takes on a new meaning today than God ever intended. You have his age, you know, it takes on a new meaning today than God ever intended. So biblically speaking, Satan can flip everything and make it opposite. Like
it even says that, doesn't it? That he can appear as an angel of light. That actually, nothing against Mormons, but you know that part in the Bible that talks about that there will be no more need for prophets, you know, and stuff like that. And then the Satan could come as an angel of light. He knows the word better than anyone. He was one of the first creations. like when you hear the Mormon thing that this angel came to him and it told him to go find the thing, a golden tablet, and I was thinking, if you were a Christian at the time, wouldn't you think that was Satan?
Yeah.
I mean, and
I'm with you on that one.
and there's a lot of other weird things, like other people find science and Christianity at odds. I personally don't.
I don't. I'm
Because
with you.
like if you listen to scientists, they say amino acids and proteins in the soil or whatever, and then life sprang from that. And the Bible says He made man from the clay or the mud. What's the difference in those two
Exactly.
statements? Or like you have Adam and Eve, and they're kind of acting like apes, and then they get modest and make clothes for themselves and cover themselves. Not like a chimpanzee doesn't care. It'll do all kinds of weird stuff in front of it. It doesn't care that it's naked, but at some point, even in their scientific version, we became man and started putting on clothes, and so it's the same thing to me. I don't see a difference in the way that they're saying it.
Science does back a lot of, like we were talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
And how you have Noah's flood, you have the Epic of Gilgamesh. And so there's all kinds of information out there that kind of prove it. And then you also have science that proves there was a flood, right, that flooded the earth. So I think they go together in areas, obviously.
Because I think that's the main problem with people is they always try to find the
They
differences
separate
instead
too,
of the things that are the same. Like,
Yeah.
even if you're completely scientist, we know that the Ice Age ended, the Pleistocene, everything went extinct. There was a big flood, the caps melted. We know that. But yet they still won't admit that there was indeed a flood, a worldwide flood. So it's like they still argue with it while they agree with it.
I know, that's what doesn't make sense.
But anyway, I've taken up enough of you guys' time, and I want to appreciate you for giving me an interview for 420 TV, and you guys check out her channel. It's a pretty good channel. I check it out all the time.
Well, thanks for having me on.
All right, thank you.
Guess I'll just close my eyes.